So yes, hello everyone. I'm Bernardo Cornejo. I'm the third person who's gonna speak about Astro-COLIBRI right now. I'm a PhD student on the group of Fabian on time domain astronomy. So I will talk to you about Astro-COLIBRI not only as a developer, of course, but also as a user. So there was a very nice introduction for the app from Fabian and a very nice introduction for the interface from Ilya. And I'm going to talk to you more about what is the API of Astro-COLIBRI. So they presented all of this to you, how to use it on your phone, how to use it on the web, what is it for, how does it work. But there's a very important part that how we have left out for the moment, which is how to interact with Astro-COLIBRI without an interface. So throughout the years, we've been able to do databases. We've been able to produce figures, to take out light curves or things like that. That we want everyone to be able to use, not only with our interface, but yourselves in your own codes or in your own applications. So I'm going to talk not about the app for the real-time follow-up of transient sources, but the API for real-time follow-up of transient sources. API stands for Application Programming Interface, which is basically something that allows you to use Astro-COLIBRI functionalities and navigate our database using simple URL endpoints like the ones you use for your searches on the web. Like, for example, we have this little endpoint cone search, or by doing a post request on your own script. I will talk to you about more what is an endpoint, what is a post request, how does this work. We have multiple endpoints, which are basically the functionalities you will be able to use. So this is the list, which you can find on our documentation page online, but which for which I will talk to you about more in a few minutes. We have two types of ways to get to these functionalities. So we have two types of requests, we call them. So we have the first one is called a GET request, which is, as everyone knows how to get them. Maybe you don't know that, but it's basically just using, you can just use an endpoint on a URL. So you just tap, for example, in this case, /tefcat on your browser, and you're going to get back the whole list of the tefcat catalog sources that are on the original catalog. So it's just as simple as that. You copy this link, you put it on your browser, and you're going to get all the information you want. You have another way to get requests. It is by a script. So first you have to import some on the top left some packages which are simple. Then have a URL, which is the base URL that you want to have, that you want to use. This URL has an endpoint, which is the access to the functionality you want to use. And then you just do a request.get of this URL and do it in a little, do a little print, to a little pretty print. So it's going to give you back all the information you want in a JSON format. What's the other way we can get information from these functionalities? What's the other way we can access these different endpoints? We have the post requests. So the very important thing to access the post request is to have a user ID. We can't do a post request on Astro-COLIBRI without having a user ID. So that's why Ilya talked about it so much, and that's why it is so important. So if you don't know yet how to do a user account, just please see the Ilya talk or ask any one of us. We also have tutorials on how to do it, but it's pretty simple and straightforward. So once you have a user ID, you can again use a little code snippet, go into your Python code, you go into your notebook and just implement this little code. Again, you have a URL with an endpoint. This time you have a header, which is what return format you want on your data, a body, which in this case is going to contain the user ID. And then you just do, instead of a GET request, you do a POST request, which is going to give you the same results, which is going to give you, in this case, I use tefcat to stay consistent. It's going to give you the full database of tefcat. Okay, so we have two ways to get to these functionalities, two ways to get into this database figures that we have in Astro-COLIBRI. Let's to guide you through all of this, to guide you if you're new to this concept of GET request, post request, of API in general. We have also a very good documentation where you have the documentation of every endpoint on how to use them and how start from a blank code to get the response you want. So basically, it's what to give as query of parameters for the GET request and what to give for body parameters for the post request, and what do we get as response fields and parameters at the end. You have also in this documentation a lot of how to use notebooks, which have detailed examples of, for example, you can do cone search on the API, you can do look for a specific event on the API, and we have notebooks on all of them, almost all of them, to guide you through different examples. So for example, how to do a cone search, how to filter your events, how to get transient events from a given time window, how to navigate through these catalogs, through 4FGL, through TAFCAT catalogs. In general, we're going to see it more thoroughly in the next slides, but you have to get as input, especially for the post request, the user ID, a position, of course, the filters you want to give to the request, and the time window, so we don't have an overload of sources. The output in general, when we have a request for a list of events, is going to be an event list in a JSON format, which is pretty readable, and it's going to be pretty useful in the future if you want to implement new tools into your software, or new or if you just want to look for a specific source and read the human readable format. Let's dive into some of the user examples and some of the most important ones. So first of all, we have visibility plots. So Ilya showed you how to get visibility plots on the main interface. So in here, we have this little endpoint called visibility plot detailed, from where you give some query parameters, which are going to be the source position, the observation position, the twilight level, observation date, and the source name, which is going to give you back, you guessed it, a figure. It's going to give you back the figure personalized in function of the inputs you gave it. In reality, it's going to give you a link to go to this figure, and it's going to also give you the metadata in JSON format for this figure. So when does the observation window start? When does the observation window end? So you can use this information later in your automatic codes or in your software to, for example, give instructions to a telescope. You also have two other endpoints, which are visibility underscore plot and multi-observatory visibility plot, which are the monthly plot and the plot for the visibility from a higher number of observation sites. So all of these are accessible by different endpoints and with different query parameters, which are going to allow you to personalize all of your results within your code. Another one, very important one is the cone search. So the cone search, as you saw on Ilya's presentation, is just a zoom on a place of the sky to see what sources are around the source of interest. So of course, to do a cone search, we first need a position on the sky. We need a radius to see how big we want this search to be, a time range to see in how much time do we allow sources to be on this position, filters. Of course, so as in Astro-COLIBRI, we're very proud about a filter. So if you want to filter your search for looking only for supernovas, for example, you can look only for supernovas, your user ID, because this is our standard to do post request, and a return format, which is by default the JSON format. So if you let's explain a little bit some of these concepts. What does body parameters mean in a post request? Body parameters mean everything you put into this little term on your code. So body, you have to define your user ID, then you have to define your position, radius, time range, filter, and return format. This is, of course, very well explained on the documentation, and all the code words you have to use in your body are perfectly described in there. Then the filtering. We have a specific type of filtering on the API for Astro-COLIBRI. So we're based on three different logics: the AND logic, OR logic, and NOT logic. So you can build any type of filter with these three logics. So you can nest these three logics, and like that, you can access every type of filter you can imagine. So here you have a specific filter, which is a simple one, which is a simple OR specification. So in here, we're gonna find either sources that have a transient flux smaller than 22, that that have as observatory listed ice cube, or has as observatory listed Fermi. So if the source fulfills one of these three conditions, it is going to be shown in your search. If this parameter is left free, if you don't put this parameter, the API from Astro-COLIBRI is going to take your own filters from the interface and implement them directly. So that's the interest also in giving your user ID. You can just interact with the filters in the interface, and then the API is going to take into account your filters and filter your results as a function of those. So it's pretty automatic. They have an instant connection, and is much easier if you don't want to bother with all of these nested filters, which may look a bit complicated at first. So what does it give? Of course, it's gonna give an image of the consort you saw before, like with Ilia in the interface. So we have different response fields for this consort. First of all, we have the VO events, which are the transient events that are shown. For example, in here, I did a consort around an optical transient, and I found a GRB, which is close. Then we have X sources, which are cataloged X-ray sources, which are these squares marked with a plus in the middle. Then we have IceCat, which are neutrino catalog sources, and we have sources which are the 4FGL and TEFCAT catalog sources, which are just two catalogs for high energy sources, which are around your source. So this is the image you get when you do your cone search on the interface. And if you use this small code snippet, you're going to get as output a list of sources, VO events, X sources, or IceCat events in a given time range in a given space area. So you're going to get exactly the same results as you're going to get here. Why do I get number of events too? Because in here, as you see in the end, I put response.json only VO events. So this means I'm going to get this image, which is going to give me 2 VO events. So as you see, you can do a cone search on your own code, on your own programming interface, and you can get the response as usual in a JSON format, and then use it as whatever you want for your future implementing. A subtype, let's say, of this cone search is latest transients. So latest transients is not going to take as input a spatial constraint. It's just going to have a time range as constraint, filter, a user ID, and a return format. So it's going to basically just give you a list of the transient events within a given time window, with, of course, their full list of parameters. The only response field in this one is VO events, because it's only given the transient events we have on a given time range. So it's basically a cone search, but in the whole sky, only for VO events. And then we have specific also endpoints for the catalog search. So for TEFCAT or for Fermi, you can also just use these two endpoints, give to the body the position, the radius, the filters you want to use, your user ID. And if you want to add some parameters, we have put as Astro-COLIBRI to make life easier. For example, we've bunched up together some types of sources which were not in the original TEFCAT or Fermi catalogs, but to make it easier, we bunched them up, but we also want to keep the original catalog. So if you want to see only the parameters from the catalog itself, you just put this to false. And if you want to see the parameters we added, you just put that to true. The output is the same as we said before, a list of Fermi and our TEFCAT catalog sources, so in a JSON format with the original full parameters, and filtered by, of course, your own parameters, either with the filter object in here or by the filtering in your own interface. We have a lot of other GET requests, post requests. So, for example, known sources, it's the list of all the names a list of all the names of all the known sources in the Astro-COLIBRI databases. ATELs, which is going to give you back astronomer telegrams associated with the given source, an event, which is going to event endpoint, which is going to give you the full set of parameters we stop for a given transient event, and a watch list, which is going to allow you to retrieve the events on your watch list from which you heard about before. So these are all GET requests, and I have to remind you, GET requests are easy to use. If you just want to use them on the browser, you can just put them on the browser, and maybe you have to add a parameter which is clearly marked on our documentation. So it's very important that with this work of understanding how to use the API, to have a very good documentation on the site, because you can always forget about what parameter to use, what you have to put as input. So we have a very thorough documentation on the Astro-COLIBRI page, which I invite you to check out, which I invite you to follow, because in this little talk, I can't describe in detail every endpoint we have and every functionality and how to use them. And you can also follow our tutorials on YouTube, because we are building these tutorials, and we try to help the community to understand how to use them properly and to understand what you get as output and how to get them and how to use them in the future. You can also ask any question in the Astro-COLIBRI forum, or you can contact us directly at the Astro-COLIBRI email. We're very active. I remind you, we use this tool not only for us, but we're sharing it with the community. So we are always hearing for your needs. We are always hearing for what you want for this app to become. So it's not only for us to be the ones that come up with new functionalities, but if you want something that this app could do in the future, we're always here to hear about it, and we're always here to try and give the tools back to the community. You have to try it yourself, of course. You have to play with it, try it yourself, and implement Astro-COLIBRI in your own devices or scripts to use it for your own interest. We have already quite a couple community-driven integrations, which is really nice, and we want to thank all of the persons that are involved in this. So we have integrations of the API from Astro-COLIBRI into Prism and Nina softwares. Which is really cool, because it's a start of this idea, right, of open science, of communication and of collaboration between communities. And yeah, I would say the API is just an idea of trying it yourself, playing with the code, playing with what you want to get, trying to play with our own notebooks, add some lines, delete some lines, and try to change coordinates, change the radius to see if you get more or less sources. And little by little, it's going to be automatic, and you're going to get familiar with it, and you're going to just be able to go through it very quickly and get the results you want and the information you want for your future implementation in your own devices, or just by a stake of interest. If you want to see how many sources there is in a region of the sky, and you want to do some statistics with it, it's pretty easy to use and pretty clear. I want to remind you also that all the parameters we give are all the parameters we have on our database. We share everything in this information. We don't keep anything from you, and we want for you to be able to do all the science you want with it. So it's a pretty useful tool for us. It's a pretty useful tool for me, and we want it to be a pretty useful tool for you in the future. So we are always here to hear from feedback, and with this, of course, we're always attentive for your need and suggestions. And for the whole team, I want to thank you for all the attention you have given to these talks, and I hope you will be able and happy to use Astro-COLIBRI in the future for your future projects, science projects, and help us professional astronomers, even if everyone here is a professional astronomer, in the effort of understanding a little bit more of the sources in the future. Thank you. If you have any questions, of course.
Thank you, Bernardo. Are there any questions? We've got plenty of time for them.
Yeah, so I don't know if you see this, but in here you have all the different endpoints you can have, and then you have the query parameters you can give to the different endpoints, the responsive fields you want to get. You're gonna get an example of the JSON response you're gonna get, and even use an example of the URL if it's a get request, and if it's a post request, you can just go to play with a notebook, and it's gonna send you directly to a notebook that you can run and just check out what results you get, and just play with the inputs you give it to see what changes in the different results. My internet is not collaborating. Yeah, but yeah. And here you have a full explanation of the filter structure, the and specification, or specification, not specification, and how everything works from top to bottom.
That's great. Thank you. Really appreciate all the documentation.
Yeah, we're
Takes a lot of effort.
Even if you see something you don't understand or it's difficult to use, just please tell us, because of course the intention is for people to use it. So if people don't understand how to use it, it's a problem.
By the way, the .science website has on the top also the links to the forum, to the YouTube channel, and all these things, so you don't need to remember them by yourself. So just remember the astro-colibri.science website, and that should give you all the necessary information. And the forum also uses the same login as your Astro-Colibri account. So the forum is accessible even without the login, but it's certainly a good way to log in, and then you get reminders and updates when we post new releases, for example, are announced on the forum. So if you don't log in, you don't get this information. So it's always good to connect, and then you stay up to date.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. See, there's a question from Jean-Paul.
Yes. Just to tell you that at the beginning of this afternoon, we will have a presentation about an implementation in Prism of the interface.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mention it on Dago. Yes, that's
no,
true.
No, it's not a problem. It's just to allow you to be here for this part of the.
Of course, and and we want to thank you very much, of course, because we know it's.
And I perhaps will shorten my presentation, because now the interface is clearly explained.
Perfect. Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.